Good evening. Hi, if everyone could please take their seats. There's still a few people filtering in, but this is a good time to take a moment to please silence your cell phones. That would be great. We'd really appreciate it. I hear one now. I hear somebody's now. So silence your cell phones, and also please note the exits from this room to your left and right and behind you. The book table, Elm Street Books is selling copies of Strangers. These have been pre-signed. They will be there after the conversation. And if you'd like your copy personalized, they can make that happen for you. Okay. All right, I think we all know why we're here. Strangers is #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And the reviews and the coverage have been electric. But those who come to this book expecting a sensational tale of revenge will be disappointed. Because Strangers isn't so much juicy as it is full of pain, labored revelation, and transformation. Belle Burden is an accomplished attorney who specializes in juvenile immigration cases. She's a warm and loving mother, the kindest friend imaginable. And she was still madly in love with her husband after over 20 years together. She believed in the marriage, trusted its strength and stability, until, without warning, her husband abruptly ended it by saying that he was leaving her. Strangers indeed recounts the dissolution of the marriage, but it does so along with so much more. What I think most of us can relate to in these pages is arriving at that wretched place, however we got there, when we don't know what is true anymore. True on the outside and true about ourselves on the inside. Who am I? What is my life? Is it of my own making? We're taken through an agonizing turning point. Belle musters up incredible courage and stamina to question it all: expectations, relationships, purpose, with great honesty and care. Harrowing as it is, it's a hopeful book. It's an instructive book that shows us how bravely and patiently doing the work of becoming ourselves can make us whole and set us free. We're pleased to have Holly Parmelee here tonight in conversation with Belle. Holly is a columnist at the digital weekly magazine Airmail, a contributing writer for New Canaan Darien magazine, and also a former board member of New Canaan Library. Now please join me in warmly welcoming Belle Burden and Holly Parmelee.
Hello, everyone. Let's see if Belle gets hers.
I think it works.
Okay, we weren't sure before. So Belle, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Instant #1 New York Times bestseller. That does not happen very often. And sold out crowd tonight with waiting list. This book has clearly struck a nerve. Are you surprised by that?
I'm very surprised by the level of this reception. I did not think I would make the list at all. I thought it would be a quiet book. And it's really very thrilling to have it reach so many people. It's amazing.
Okay, so take us back. It's COVID. You're in the depths of it. You're with your family. You're cozy. You're in Martha's Vineyard. Life is great. Mm-hmm. And you got a voicemail. Tell us
I got a
what
voicemail.
happens.
It was the second week of COVID lockdown, March 20th, 2020. I think we can all remember what that week was like. We had been there about a week. It was very cozy. My husband was chopping wood and building fires. I was doing housekeeping, which I'm not very good at, and taking walks. And I was literally mopping the floor after dinner, and I got a call. And I didn't answer it because I hate the phone, but I also did not recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail. And then I played the voicemail, and it was a man saying, "Your husband is having an affair with my wife." And I was completely stunned. I remember feeling very dizzy and immediately thinking this is a mistake, that my husband would explain this. He did say, "I'm trying to reach Belle," so it was not a wrong number. But I thought he would make it go away.
And you tell him, and he says, "I love you and only you. This was a mistake. It's over." But within hours, he says, "I want a divorce." So how, that must have been dizzying to deal with. So how did you handle that part of it?
Yes, it was really just so dramatic, the shift. It was like a whiplash. Like I could not understand what was happening because the night before he was very apologetic, very sorry. He was very much still my husband. And I pictured the weeks ahead just having to do therapy, having to really try and figure this out, stuck in a house together. But by morning, he walked into our bedroom fully dressed in boots and a black coat and a packed bag. And his whole affect had changed. All the warmth was gone. The person that I knew seemed to be gone. And he said, "I want a divorce and I'm leaving." And he walked out of the house, got in a Jeep, got on the ferry and left the island.
How did you immediately handle that? I mean, you have the children in the house, you're trying, I mean, you must have been completely
I was
floored.
Just absolutely floored and devastated because I really loved and trusted this person and really believed that I had a happy marriage. I was also very isolated, as we all were, and my family, some of whom were here, could not get to me, and I couldn't get to anybody. And I decided to pretend for my girls, because I was advised to do this, that everything was fine, but I was clearly not fine. I was a mess, and literally on the bathroom floor, which I think a lot of women end up on the bathroom floor because they can hide from their kids there.
It's a good point.
And it's very, cold and calming. And I spent a lot of time there and a lot of time not being able to get out of bed.
Well, the book explores how you search for clues in retrospect. Were there signs you missed, or do you think some people are simply unknowable?
I've thought a lot about that, both in writing the book and in just my life. And I think there were signs of him being financially protective that I should have seen. But in terms of signs that that this was going to end this way, that he was going to leave this way, or even that we were going to get divorced, I really don't see those. And that's still very strange not to see those signs. He never told me he was unhappy. We did not fight very much. We were far from perfect. But there were really not that many clues. He went to bed at 9 p.m. I thought my challenge with him was that he was older than his years, and I thought, okay, he didn't like to go to dinner parties, and that was what I was going to have to deal with, and I loved him, and I thought that was what I would do, and that would be fine.
I can't even imagine then, especially in this case, this is not someone that you would have thought in any way would one day walk out.
No, I think I was attracted to him initially because he was so steady, so calm, never yelled. So he did not present that way at all.
Okay. Well, this began as a viral modern love essay, obviously, as you know. What compelled you to go public with something so private, especially given your family's tradition of discretion?
So I think it's strange because we're a discreet family. We keep things private. I'm also very shy. I never spoke in class. I tend to keep things really to myself. But the moment this happened, I was unable to lie about it. I would run into someone, not many people were on the island, but I would run into someone and they'd say, "How are you?" And I would say, He left me. I don't know why, and I am in agony. And so from the beginning, I just knew that I felt like I would die if I did not say the truth of what was happening to me. And then as some more time went by, I think when something like this happens, there are a lot of narratives floating around. And some of those narratives feel like they're not true, or they serve someone other than you. And so I really wanted to write down the truth of it, of what actually happened. And I wanted to be a writer when I was in high school. And as I started writing it down, I got very interested in the art of it, and like how to create something with suspense, and when do you say that there was the phone call, and I really got interested in that. And then I just have felt this such clarity, along with fear, that if I shared this story, that it would help people, or it would help women who had been through similar things. And I felt so isolated, and I felt a lot of shame when it happened to me. And one of the few things that helped was listening to the few books that I found that were similar to what I experienced. So I think that's what I just really felt this burning urge to do.
Do you think if this had happened, if it wasn't COVID, you might have responded differently?
Do you mean like would he have left if it wasn't COVID?
No. I think he would have left. But I just mean, I wonder if your response, because you were isolated, you were not with your family, you did not have the support system you normally would have had. You were trapped, and trapped is a strong word, but you kind of were trapped on Martha's Vineyard by yourself with your daughters trying to pretend things were fine.
It was so intense because I really had to just be with it. I had to just feel every part of it. There was no way to resume my regular life, to go to school pickup, to do all those things. I just had to sit with it, often alone. And I think that actually benefited me in the long run because I really walked through it. I did not move around it. I really had to experience the whole thing. And that probably did lead to me expressing myself in writing.
It's interesting. Well, you mentioned that some people in your circle reacted negatively when you wrote the Modern Love column. What was that like? And did it make you hesitate to write the memoir?
For the most part, there was so much support and love, and from all quarters, but both personally and then letters and emails that would come from the New York Times to me, there was a lot of criticism, and it fit exactly into the things that I worried about myself, which was I am writing about my children's father, and will that hurt them? And I am airing dirty laundry that proper, women are not meant to do. Right. And it's shocking to do that. And so I did have that, and I knew with the book I would be facing more of that, but it was almost like training ground. And I knew that with the book it would come again, but I was ready for it.
And you mentioned to me earlier that I think this is fascinating, that you got more criticism from the New York Times article than the book. It's almost as if just the short piece bothered people more than you really expanding on the rest.
It did, and maybe there just wasn't enough to it. Maybe there wasn't enough of my story or my pain or anything like that. What I've experienced with the book is really a tidal wave of, that's so funny, that's my sister-in-law with
this would be her sister-in-law, Charmaine Burden, who did not turn her phone off. Thank you, Charmaine.
She's the best, by the way.
She is the best.
So yes, what I've experienced with the book is a tidal wave of support from women all over the world. And now when people criticize me, because they do, I try not to read like the Daily Mail or anything like that, but when people criticize me on Instagram, other women who I've never met start going after that person and defending me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I don't even have to like feel anything because they're going after them for me.
I love that.
Yes.
Well, growing up, your brother nicknamed you Belle the Good because, look at her. She did everything perfectly. She followed the rules. She was just not someone who ever would have caused a problem in any way. The transformation from Belle the Good to someone who uses her voice feels really central to this book. It's almost as if you transformed into, I look at you now as Belle the Warrior. And I just wonder, was that person always inside of you?
First of all, Belle the Good was not meant to be a compliment. I just want to make that clear.
Well, it was from your brother, so we understand it wasn't a compliment.
It was because he really thought I was the rule following was really boring. He wanted me to go out to discos with him, and when we were teenagers, and I just wouldn't go. I wanted to go to bed. Yes, I have always been a rule follower. I have done what I'm supposed to do. I've always done my homework. I've always tried to go to the best college, best law school, and get married and have kids, and I definitely played within the lines. And this really is a huge departure from that. And I don't know if I was, my family would say I was very shy. My stepmother's here. I would hide behind her thigh all the time. But I think it was in there, but I think this had to happen for that part of me to come out.
Well, I would love for you to read. There's a paragraph that to me encapsulates this idea with you, which I just thought was so beautifully written. And
I brought my glasses. There was something growing in me, an almost nihilistic desire to set flame to the remaining structures of my former life, to the very safety I clung to the fiction that I could depend on anyone other than myself for protection, to the idea that being quiet was the only way to be good, and a deepening of an instinct within me since the first days after James left, that the truth was the only possible foundation for what would come next.
I think that answers the question and says it all, and it is beautiful. Well, your memoir examines your family history, including lessons about how women are expected to behave in the face of betrayal. What did you learn from watching your mother, Amanda, and your grandmother, Babe Paley, navigate their own relationships?
Well, they were both, one was and one is, formidable women who have had great success in their different spheres. Definitely not wallflowers. But with the men in their lives who were unfaithful, they never spoke about it, and they gracefully cleaned up the mess. And in doing so and staying quiet about it, I think they protected the men. They allowed the men to feel their own importance, to feel that what they were doing was fine. And I really wrestled with that after this happened because, as I said, I thought I was marrying someone who would never do this. But I thought, is there something about this maternal line where we are repeating a pattern over a number of years? And will that happen to my children, not just my girls, but my son? And what can I do to stop that pattern? And I do believe that in not talking about something like this or having a family secret, or that you do risk that repeating across generations. And my hope is that by talking about it, that I can stop that.
Well, I love the way there's another paragraph I'd like you to read. You can tell how much I love her writing, because you explain kind of how, again, the behavior of these men was kind of funny, naughty, and it was okay and accepted. And I love that you have stopped that pattern, but please read that.
I heard my grandfather described as naughty, my mother's boyfriend as a flirt, the betrayals chalked up to unavoidable temptation, a natural accessory to success. I saw that my grandmother and mother had forgiven these men, that they'd quietly cleaned up the mess, never saying a word about it. I felt in my bones an acceptance of men behaving badly, a value in not calling them out, in protecting a man's belief in his own importance, and a premium placed on keeping such things private.
And I think the irony here is you thought you were marrying somebody who would never be like these men. And that must have also added to the shock that
it
your
really
steady
did.
husband ends up
Yes, I thought I was marrying a very steady man in a gray flannel suit who was not a public person, who had never yelled, very steady personality. But the truth is, I repeated it in a much more spectacular fashion because my grandfather and my mother's boyfriend both begged to be forgiven, begged to come back, and mine did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. I don't know what to say. I mean, that's his problem. We'll leave it at that. Okay. You've described writing this book as writing yourself back to wellness.
Yes.
How did the act of writing change your understanding of what had happened to you? Because this entire thing, I think for all of us, is so confusing. None of us can understand. So by writing, did you get some answers?
So I think there are two answers to that question. The first is that the actual act of writing was so important to me coming out of this. And it really started a month after he left, even less than a month. I had to submit a case in family court in Queens for one of my clients. And I had to write a memo, I had to write affidavits, I had to tell her story in words. And I was a mess. I couldn't even fill the printer. I was just really emotional. But I got through it, and there was something about that process of actually putting words down on the page that, again, was repeated as I started the divorce and having to write a counterclaim, and then, of course, in Modern Love. And as I did that, in that process of actually describing experiences in words, there's something about that really brought me back to life. The second part of your question is, I think that, like all writers, I think I wrote I say in the book, I hate the word catharsis because I don't think they say it about male writers, and it sort of gives this image of we're so angry and upset, we need to just get it on the page and then we'll be fine. And I think we actually write to figure things out. And I never was able to figure him out or figure out the reason why he left, but I was able to figure out a lot about myself.
Which is the most important thing.
Yes.
Well, the book touches on how your husband controlled much of the decision-making, finances, and even the rhythms of the household. When did the dynamic begin, and when did you recognize it as problematic?
It started pretty early. I really wanted to stay home with kids. I wanted to be a pickup and all those things. And he really wanted a very serious career in finance. And so the division of responsibility happened pretty early on, and then just became more pronounced.
Okay. This is another family member
Yes,
who's falling apart on the front row.
So I want to give her water.
Susan, let's give Susan some water.
So it happened very early, and I was on board with it, honestly. I wanted to be in charge of the home and the kids. But I think what happened, the part that I regret, is that it became so the family enterprise. It was what was supporting us. It was part of what was supporting us. And it just became so all-consuming. And so it was the reason why he would miss things with the kids. And in that, I think I lost sight of my own passions, my own talents. And I think there is a way to do both, to support someone's career, but also not lose sight of that in yourself.
And in terms of the finances, because he took over,
yes.
and you didn't necessarily know a lot of what was going on, and being a Harvard-educated lawyer.
I was a corporate lawyer,
okay.
So I knew how to read a balance sheet. I knew all that stuff, but I convinced myself I could not understand it. That because he was better able to explain it to me, to understand it. So I paid our bills online, but I didn't read our tax returns. I didn't really understand where the money sat. And that came back to haunt me. But not only did I think I couldn't understand it, but there was something that felt romantic about it, about the handing over to my husband, who, it was like an act of taking care of us. And my father had died 2 years before I met him, and I was looking for that protection. He said to me, I'm going to take care of you. And I really liked that. But that was a mistake. And what I tell friends now is, first of all, read your tax returns. And also have the conversation, no matter how happily married you are, have the conversation, what would happen if this marriage ended or this relationship ended? What would be the financial repercussions for me?
But do you think, knowing what happened, you could have trusted him in that?
I think that that's a good question. I don't think he would have hidden anything, but I think that I trust. It's hard to let go of that trust and to believe that he's making decisions that are good for both of us.
Well, the reviews describe this book as both a love story and a horror story. Do you still see it as a love story in any way?
I do, and that was so important to me to write the love story. We fell madly in love with each other, and we had a really wonderful marriage for, I believe, a long time. I don't know when it changed, but it was really important for me to record that, for myself and for my kids. I think when marriages end like this, that it becomes only about the ending. All of us talk about that marriage only as how he left or she left or whatever, and everything that came before gets erased. And we had 20 years, many of which were really wonderful, and I wanted my kids to have a record of that, and for me to have a record of that. And I still believe both things can be true. I think you can have a love story and have it end badly.
And I think that you accomplished that in this book, because as you read it, I think that, as a reader, that's what even makes it more shocking. It does seem that everything was okay enough.
Yep.
And that you were happy. So it's still this, as the reader, you don't understand what happened.
Yep.
And that had to have been so frustrating for you.
It was really hard. And where I sit with it is that, as he describes it, the only thing he's really given me to describe it is a switch went off. And that's what it felt like. It just was, there was a before, switch went off, and then there was an after for him, and he did not want the life anymore.
Okay, well, tell us about the title of the memoir. It's a little bit of what we're saying.
Yep.
Do you think in the end your husband was a stranger to you?
I think when he left and now, I think he is a stranger to me. I think we really knew each other for a long time, and it felt very intimate. I felt like I really knew him. But it changed at some point. I just don't know if it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. I don't know.
And I remember when I first read the book, what spoke to me was just the fact that you think you know someone. It could be a friendship, it could be a relation, anything. And I think all of us, it's that fear on some level that you are not seen, or the person you're looking at is not really there for you. So that to me is why this is kind of more than a divorce memoir per se.
And it's chilling. It's still chilling to me.
And
it
scary.
Really is the change. Yes, it's very scary.
Okay, well, what do you hope readers, particularly women, going through similar situations get from this book? Like, what would be the biggest lesson you would tell people?
It's not even a lesson. I think I really want those women and women who are going through something similar to feel seen and understood, and to know that they're not alone in it. I felt so alone when it was happening to me. And then I also hope, there are lessons, there's the financial lesson, some career stuff, but I really hope that they can see that there is something on the other side, that when everything falls apart, that you may actually find something in you that you thought was lost, and that it can be an even better life, a different life, but a better life.
I think that's so true, and clearly I think that that's what we've seen with you. Well, the one thing we've missed is I know how hard this must have been for your children on every level. And I think some of the criticism you got early on was don't talk negatively about the father, or, protect them. Could you explain to us a little bit about why you chose a different path with that?
Yes, my hope is that it's complicated for them. Like it's always going to be complicated for them. But I do believe that acknowledging your child's reality and what they're living, there's nothing in my book that they have not lived, that you can do that in a way that is not vindictive or mean about your ex-spouse. and that it will serve them to have acknowledged their reality, to have spoken about these things, to, as I said, not have them repeat themselves.
I love that. And how have they received the book and everything happening with you right now?
They're really terrific kids, and I showed them the book over a year ago. It's even hard for me to talk about because if I say how supportive they are of me, because they're really wonderful with me, it feels like they're betraying their dad. So what I would say is that they're very supportive of me and they're very supportive of their dad.
I think that's fantastic. Trying to think of what else we should talk about at this point, because we've moved so fast. Belle and I did not think we would move this fast. Well, I would like to go back to the writing of it in terms of going from the essay. I'm sure that was so difficult for you to do, but to really expand it on this level, was it a task that you could look to every day as something that was doable, or was it painful?
I took a memoir writing class right after I finished Modern Love. And the teacher, I had to take it 3 times for it really to sink in. But the teacher says to write for 30 minutes every morning. And I started to do that. I'm really a morning person. I wake up very, very early. And I started to really make a routine of that. And it started with 30 minutes, which was really hard to do. And then it just kept expanding to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I really started to look forward to it. And at that point, I was writing different pieces about different things, and it was like revisiting a friend. And that felt great. And then when I signed the book deal, I was given an advance on a proposal. I had not written the book. And that felt, as like a really nerdy student, like very stressful. So I was like, I've got to write this book. So I was very intense about it. And I wrote for those hours in the morning, and I would take a little break, and then I would go to this place called the Writer's Room, and I would write for several more hours. And I just like got it out. And I did it it took me about 1.5 years to write it. And just keep editing it. But I really approached it as a job. Like, I have been given money, I need to produce this book.
But looking back at the experiences that had happened as you wrote about them, was it painful?
The painful parts, it was painful to revisit the love story, because at that time I still really felt in love with my husband. That was difficult. It was hard to visit my father's death. And I think the biggest challenge in writing it was deciding what to put in and what to keep out. I think in a book like this, it's very easy for the equilibrium to get off, to put one more detail about your ex, or one more detail about how you were received, and it just starts to become a little more grapey, a little more unfair. And I just that was the biggest challenge for me, like, because there were some things I really wanted to put in, and I ended up taking them out because it just felt like a more fair, even tone, which was really important to me.
And I think you accomplished that, because I think one of the reasons this book is so popular is you aren't bitter and angry. You're telling your story, but in a very clear, concise way that I think it's easier to take. And I think people expect always a woman who is in this situation to have more of an edge.
Yeah, and as Mickey said, I think people really, there is an expectation it might be like a edgy revenge
memoir.
Yes, and I just did not want to do that. I imagine my kids reading it every step of the way. And the hard parts in it, as I said, they had read before, but it also isn't as interesting, I think, if you're just like really angry and complaining. But as I say that, I also think I'm conscious of the fact that as I was going through it, even talking about a divorce or someone leaving, it's so easy just to tip into that stereotype of the angry woman who was left, who didn't want to get divorced. And it's like if you say too much or you explain too much about the horror of your divorce in court, you can sense people getting uncomfortable and moving away. So I was conscious, which I think is very unfair. It's like you become a hysteric very quickly. I think within days of my husband leaving, people told me I was too upset, too angry, when you're just kind of like trying to figure out what's happening. So I think I was conscious of that in the book, to not tip into that stereotype.
Must have been very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest parts for me in reading this was it's COVID, in Martha's Vineyard, and some people come back, and the way you were treated by various friends, whether they're looking away, not catching your eye, definitely not coming over and inviting you to something. And that just kind of killed me. And that, again, I think you didn't do anything wrong. Why are you being treated this way?
Well, it's interesting because, like, for the vast majority, people were so kind and wonderful. Like,
Not
they
the group at
really,
that club.
No, I have to beg to differ with that. If you read the book again, it is like the vast majority is nice, and some of them are here, some of the nicest
Sorry,
people
everybody
I know.
that's here. You could have been nicer.
The amazing woman who came over to me and said, "I'm going to take care of you," is right there. Like, really just incredible kindness that I don't think I would have found anywhere else. But what sticks out to readers are like I think it's like three instances that were very hard. I think part of that is people don't have a language for divorce, and they feel uncomfortable and they don't know what to say to you, which I really understand. I don't think I would have said anything either. And then there is some stuff about that a little bit of a favoring of the man, and the person who's a little bit more powerful in terms of career and stuff like that. But I think it's a mistake to focus on just the negative, because there was so much kindness. And I think there's models of people in this community who really, like the man on the bicycle who got off his bicycle and came over to me. Or
Please
Aaron.
repeat that again, because it's my favorite story.
Very much like Aaron, I didn't know him well. I was walking, because I was walking obsessively, and he was biking the other direction, and I thought he would just keep going. I knew he was a nice guy, but I just thought he would keep going, and he got off his bike. He came over to me, wheeled his bike over, and he just said, "I'm just so sorry this is happening to you." And it was one sentence, but it really just made me feel so good and so acknowledged and seen. And it's a lesson to me, because I never would have done that. And now, if someone is going through something hard, I am determined that I am going to move towards them and just figure out something to say. We always think we're going to say the wrong thing, but just saying something, I think, is the right way to go.
I thought it was a beautiful story, and I know that you had so much support. But
really
again, you weren't with your family when this happened, so I just think it just added another layer of difficulty and pain to not have your tribe with you at this time.
It's really hard. I had to depend on the phone, which is, as I said, I don't love the phone, but they were calling me multiple times a day.
Yes, and we have to acknowledge, Susan in particular, this is Belle's stepmother. As she became Belle the warrior, I felt like, again, with the fairy tale analogy here, the wicked stepmother is the fairy godmother to me in this, because as I read it, I thought, wow, she is, your advice was incredible, steady, calm, constantly there. It was just so beautiful to me. So that was another part of the story that just resonated.
Some really good pieces of advice.
I mean, for everybody.
That I still use. The one on the stage of moving the spotlight from your ex to you.
Will you repeat that
still
again?
use
Because I forgot it. Tell me, but it was a good one.
I would get very obsessed thinking about my ex, thinking about the person he was having an affair with. I just was like in just such a deep rabbit hole. And she said, picture yourself on a stage, and the spotlight is on him as you're thinking about him, and force that spotlight from him to you, and he's then in the dark and the spotlight is on you, and it actually really works. And I find myself having to do it now with the book, if there's something negative about the book, to just turn that spotlight into all the positive. And it's a really good trick. It really is.
She's filled with them.
Yeah.
Well, is there, Okay, so we're going to get to questions soon because I'm sure people have questions. But at the end of the day, is this what you had hoped? I mean, I would imagine it's what you hoped it would be. But
What I hoped, I think you imagine publication, you don't imagine much after that. But my hope was that women, it would have like this slow build where women would read it and then recommend it to a friend, and then it would like sort of get passed around that way. But this far exceeds my wildest expectations, and it's really a growth experience for me because I really am not a public speaker, and the idea of being out and about in this way and going on television and stuff is really challenging, but I'm learning a lot, and it's pretty exciting too. It's pretty great.
And I think that is why I respect you doing this even more. This is not your wheelhouse. You do not want to do this. You do not want public attention in any way, and yet this story was important enough to you that you decided to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing. And now when I'm feeling scared, I really feel this like wind behind me from a lot of women who are like, keep going.
I love it. Okay. Well, we're going to open it up to questions now.
Yeah, if you raise your hand, we'll come to you with the microphone because we are recording this.
Oh,
And I'll
Beth
say
Davey
you've got
front
some
and
men
center.
behind you too. There's some men in
Yes.
the audience here. Props to the guys.
Hi. I was wondering, do you feel that you have actually forgiven your ex-husband? And if so, when and how did that happen?
I think forgiveness is it's a tough concept because I think for like real forgiveness, someone has to acknowledge what happened, and that's never happened for me. So instead of forgiveness, I would say that I've made peace with it, and I have moved to a different space beyond it. But I think there has to be some ownership to really get to forgiveness.
Hi, I have two questions. If your book is made into a movie or like a Netflix series,
It's already happening, people.
who is
It's
cast?
not happening yet.
It's close.
There is interest.
Okay, cool. Who is cast, or who would be your dream casting for you and say James? And then
me?
my second question is, because I'm squeezing in too, because I'm curious, are you writing a second book, and what's the topic?
Wait, so the first one was dream casting?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of actresses interested, but I got the best piece of advice from another screenwriter, which is to focus on the writer. Who is going to write this? And I think that's really good advice, and not to pay attention to who's going to play or the dazzle of it.
That's good for them, but we want to know who you think's going to play it.
I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard thing to say because I always say like it should be someone you don't actually want to leave, because if it's someone like you want, so I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. And I am trying to write something new, not another memoir. I do not need to write another memoir, but fiction, which is just so much harder because you have to make it all up. There's no guideline. There's no.
Okay. Any questions here? Let me see how I can get through to you. Got one right here in the middle.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for being so courageous in your writing. You demonstrate such incredible grace and such a willingness to break generations of patterns, and it was just a really inspiring book to read. So first of all, thank you for writing it. I found myself literally picturing you with your son, with his friends, and your daughters in your house. And I just was wondering, how has that parenting evolved as you had your children in the bosom, your girls in the bosom of your home, and your son, who is older, if memory serves me correctly, somewhere else? And how have you made sure that those relationships have stayed as strong moving forward?
Relationships with me, with my kids. Yeah, he ended up going to college. He finished high school in New York and then went to college in New York. So we're very close. He just came over. He's doing jury duty and came over and needed like 4 chicken thighs. I was like, okay, I'll get those in the oven. So I was as I wrote about in the book, I'm very conscious of what kind of man he's going to be, and to talk to him about what happened in a way that's not destructive to his relationship with his father. So I'm very conscious of that. But my kids are now 23, 21, and 18. So they're older, and they're all doing really well. He's out of college, one in college, and one who's going to college next year, thank God. And I mean, thank God that she got in, and anyway, not that she's leaving me. But I think I wrote about being a potted plant, and actually a friend from the Vineyard gave me that analogy, and that I think has worked for us. I didn't, and this may be a justification for not being in another relationship, but I just wanted to be, because their dad was not there, to be as steady as I could be for them. Which is not to say I was perfect in any way, but I was home a lot, and I was just, walking the dog and cooking, and I think that worked for us.
We've got one back here.
Hi. I was really struck by the experience that you had with the prenup. It felt like an added betrayal to me, and particularly that scene that you described where James was looking through all of those boxes in the basement for the prenup, and you said at one point that you knew, in fact, that he wasn't going to find it there because you had looked through those boxes, and that if you had found the prenup, you would have burned it. Do you think you would have? Like, in retrospect, do you think if you had found the prenup that you would have gotten rid of any trace of it?
I would have. I was ready. I was ready. I knew where I was going to do it. I was totally going to burn it. I knew for the 20 years that this prenup was not going to serve me, and I thought that we would get rid of it. And I think some people skip over it a little bit. The change, most prenups say that whatever you brought to the marriage stays yours, and what is earned during the marriage is split. And my ex requested a change, which is that anything earned during the marriage would not be split unless you put it into joint name. So I put my assets into joint name in the form of our house and our apartment. He did not put his assets into joint name at any point during the 20 years. So I knew that if that prenup was found, that it was going to be bad, and that it was actually going to be quite unfair to me. So when we couldn't find it, I thought, oh my God, maybe we just never signed it, or maybe it's just doesn't exist anymore. So I did look through every single box. It took me many, many hours, and then I retaped all the boxes. So I knew he was not going to find it, but he did.
Question. Okay, got one here.
Hi. I haven't read the book, but just some excerpts in your article. Does your ex-husband have any of your same friends? Have they gone over sort of to his side? And the other thing that astounds me is that you don't sound angry.
We do have some mutual friends. There's some people that really just went with him and that I haven't talked to since the day he left. And then there are a few mutual friends, and then there's some people who really just, I never demanded that, but it was such an extreme situation that my close friends were just like, we are with you. I had seen some friends who really, after they were divorced, just really lived in a very angry place for a very long time, and I understood why. But I knew that as soon as I signed the divorce agreement, that I just did not want to live in that place anymore. So I know it seems kind of incongruous because I've written a book, but I've really tried not to live in a place of anger or to be consumed with the betrayal or what I did get or didn't get. I just have tried to make a discipline of just not living in that place, which is not to say I don't feel angry sometimes. I still do. But I just didn't want to be consumed by it.
Okay, we've got one right here.
Okay. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the editing process. First of all, I was shocked that the editor, I assume a male, I think you referred to him as a male, at Modern Love, worked on your piece as much as he did and demanded that your husband sign off. I can't believe that.
I'm
really disappointed in Modern Love.
I know. I was so stunned by it because he had told me in the beginning that my ex would get a fact check call, which I was totally prepared for because the piece was factual and there was nothing that he could object to. But he said, we want you to send it to him and get his reaction. And I thought, it's not going to be a good reaction. So I put it to bed for a long time because I thought I couldn't inflame my ex by sending it. And what was the point if he was going to refuse to approve it? And I really took this guy on. And I said, how can any woman tell her story if you're going to ask for the man's approval? And do you do the same thing if a man writes something? Do you actually get the woman, does the woman hold the same kind of power? And he said, I'm really sorry, but he blamed the standards editor or somebody else.
Did he say that they do the same thing with a...
He claimed that, yes, they do the same thing. I'm not entirely convinced of that, but I put it to bed for a couple of months, and then I was just like, if this is the only way, I'm going to do this. So he really surprised me by approving it.
And were you surprised that your husband approved it?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
I was very surprised
at the end of the
that
day.
he approved it.
And then what was the editing process like with your book editor?
My book editor is fantastic. Her name's Whitney Frick. She's at Dial, which is at Random House. And the first time I met her when we were shopping the book around, she immediately saw the structure of the book in 5 parts, start with the present, then go to past. So she laid it all out, and I could just see her brain working, and she's just been the best collaborator. She's been amazing. And dealt with some bumps along the way, and she's been terrific. I'm glad that I found her. She's been great.
I think we have time for maybe, okay, here's a man. Let's ask a man. Excuse me.
And you're going to hold the mic for me.
I'm not giving it up.
Oh, no. So the memoir, was that an editorial choice to call it a memoir, or did you explore the term memoir in literature, and did you study up on Nora Ephron or Hellman or the triggers that are involved with memoirs, and did you keep a journal?
I never kept a journal. You mean during my adult life, or just? I kept a journal as a kid, but when I stopped writing in college, I never wrote a journal again. And in this, I did not. I just went right to the computer. It always felt like memoir to me. Someone suggested that I fictionalize it to protect everybody, and I tried that for like 15 minutes and realized it was totally ridiculous to pretend like this wasn't my life. But yes, I love Nora Ephron, I love Joan Didion, I love that whole genre, so that's where I felt like I wanted to be.
I think over here. Sorry. Hi. So you had mentioned that you were a corporate lawyer before you got married, and then talking tonight, you mentioned that as you were starting to write again, it was hard just to submit a brief for the Court in Queens. So could you tell us, when did you make that switch from being at home with your kids in the process of the divorce, and has that been satisfying? I know now you're focusing on the writing, but are you still practicing fully?
I am. Well, not full time, but it does take up a lot of my time. I started in 2018, and with another mom from my kids' school, my daughter's best friend's mom, who's also a former corporate lawyer, and we took on one case, and we felt better doing it together. And it was incredible because we ended up getting this young woman's green card, and then she's actually now submitted her application for citizenship. And we found that it was a great way to do something tangible, but also to be able to write and to appear in court. You appear in court, you argue, you examine witnesses, and it felt great to be back in that kind of professional context. I had done board work, I'd done a bunch of things that were actually very demanding, as people who've done that work know. And you know, things with my kids, schools and all that kind of thing. But this it felt good to use my legal skills again. And we just took on a new case. We've like 6 active cases right now, and some are done, and keep taking on more. And it's I recommend it to everybody who, particularly if you want to contribute on this particular issue right now, which is really a tough area right now.
Well, I hate to end the conversation, but we're going to whisk Belle away to the book signing table in the gallery right now. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Belle, for coming tonight.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Holly.
so much.